Welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust, and Transparency. Today, this might just be the start of a brand new section titled, Are They Making Any Money? So this wasn't always my idea. I did have it in the back of my head, but, got to be careful with the development stuff. Credit goes out to someone on my Instagram, sent me this message and said, hey, are they making money on this particular deal? And I thought, look, that's a probably good idea. Let's break it down. Let's crunch through the numbers. Now, there are obviously quite a few assumptions that we need to make, but obviously we'll do our best to cover all bases. I'll let you guys in on a little secret as well. If I ever see a video on social media of someone gloating about how much money they've made in a development, just know with my feasibility calculator, with my knowledge and my skill set, I will find that project and I will run the numbers, because if you are making the money and it stacks and it's a good project, then you've introduced me to a new area that I'll be looking in. Or if it's not, I like to also run the numbers to see how much they're actually making, because just like how fake social media is with basically everything else that we know it for, development and real estate is no different. A lot of these sorts of jobs, a lot of these sorts of projects where people are saying they're making millions of dollars, I'll put into my trusty feasibility calculator here, and the returns are often a very different story. I think there's a lot of people out there that, they'll have a feasibility that's 5 or 6 lines and say, yeah, that's it. Just to give you guys a bit of context, my feasibility spreadsheet here is 69 rows long. So there's obviously 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. There's probably 40 to 50 of those that are used, and others are. It's often overseen when often overlooked when people post up. They don't know half of the costs that they're meant to be putting in these. And I think you guys will get some value if I run through it and say, look, are they making money? Let's calculate it. Obviously, you can't share this feasibility calculator for you guys because I've spent months and months and months crafting and perfecting this. But I will tell you some of the high-level costs, and we'll sort of run through it in the hope to sort of add a bit of value to you guys. I know there's a lot of people out there that are interested in development, so hopefully these sorts of videos, are they making money? Will provide a bit of value for you. So let's jump into it. And yeah, this one's a duplex in sort of Western Sydney, and we'll see if it's making any money. Okay, so the address in question is 31 Anderson Avenue, Panania. Now, unfortunately, we are a little far out for this to be an LMR zoned area. However, what you guys will notice is we are extremely close to Panania train station. Panania train station, the train line's here, and we're an acceptable distance away in terms of a feasibility perspective. We have all sorts of dual occupancy. So the green, if you're looking at your screen, all the sort of approved developments. So a lot of dual locks, dual locks. This is an interesting sort of maybe 2 into 5, 2 into 4, 2 into 5, something like that. There you go, 2 into 5. It's an interesting one. So this is the lot here. I will get rid of the planning layers so you guys can see what we're talking about. So there's a little look at the site there. We've got dual lock. We've got basic like little cabanas. They've got a pool and cabana in one, and then just some grassed area and a cabana in the second one. Strategic little footprint. But look, let's see what we can find out about this one. For example, it is 975 square meters. It is affected by some sort of flood, but nonetheless, this is the site. Now, what I could find on it, let's sort of I'll run you guys through it. So this is just one thing came up, but essentially it was sold for $1.41 million in July of 2023. One side sold for $235 marketed it as 6-bed, 5-bath, 1-car. Grand masterpiece. This one was sold off market, so you can't see too much details. However, what I found was there is the other one that we can dive into. 2.45. So total, we have a total gross realization of 4.8 mil. If we look through, and a couple of things to note on this one in terms of construction and pricing. Obviously, it's a full works double brick construction with a suspended concrete slab. So that's obviously a little bit more expensive. We've got a counterlevered stone floating staircase. No mention of appliances, but really good close to the station. I'll show you guys to it. What's cool with this duplex is, very nice appearance, monochromatic color palette, above ground parking, so no basement. Let's look through it a little bit. Love my concrete. So that's the entry. Pretty standard, a little bit fancy through here. Bit of lighting. It's obviously kitchen's nice. Kitchen's nice, interesting light choice. There's a lot of sort of stone benchtop work. Nice little sort of double-heighted void here above the lounge room. Space for your good old TV. It's another shot into the lounge room and al fresco out the back. Another shot. This is the al fresco at the back. So obviously a really nice entertainer. Pool, small pool there for the kids. Obviously got quite a lot of area out there. Stairs and void. Bedroom, again, sort of this stone finish. Study up in the hallway. Another bedroom. This is the outdoor. I'm going to say it's a studio. Looks like it could be used for something else, like a granny flat, like grandparents or something like that. This is the floor plan. So this is what we've seen. Bed on ground floor, laundry, kitchen. Upstairs, we've got main bed with walk-in robe, ensuite, bed 2, bed 3, and then really nice big 4th bedroom. So 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, and then you've got a decent sized bedroom. That's a little bit thin, but nonetheless. Now, I've went through and completed a calculation of the floor plan size just to use as a rough estimate in terms of construction costs. So this ground floor area is about 140 square meters. Above is 100 square meters, so 240. We also have a studio that's about 25, so 265, and then we have an al fresco part, which is 45 square meters, and the covered terrace, which is about 20 square meters. So a lot of building footprint and area. So what we can learn from this is it was bought in July of 2023. It then took them July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. It took them 8 months of holding costs on the particular house to have their dual occupancy CDC approved. So that's really interesting. And then what I also found was that to get this stuff sold was August 2025. So if we look, we're starting, 8 months, we're starting construction in, say, March 2024. We're selling it in August 2025. So March, April, May, June, July, August. And then the other one sold in, I believe, September. I believe it was July. So July and August. So we're looking at about 18 months construction time frame. So I want to run you guys through a little bit of the numbers. So total gross realization, total sales for the development, $4.8 million. That's what we agreed. Land purchase price, 1.41 mil. We've got about 60 grand worth of stamps on that. In terms of project architect fees, that's a CDC. I've put in about $55,000 for a CDC of that sort of stature. We've got some We've got some fees. We've got some contributions, holding fee. Now, I have assumed some holding fees. I'll tell you how I've assumed them in a second. We've then got some financing costs, so that's like interest and establishment fees. And we've got GST, selling costs, and all that kind of stuff. Now, where this gets it interesting and exciting is in the construction costs, because here's the thing. I don't know too much. I don't know one thing about who these guys were or who's done it. Is it a developer? I don't know if it's a developer or builder or developer builder. What I do know is that there's about, and I've accounted for about 270 square meters of envelope. Now, if we were to put on, a price for someone to get that built by a builder, and we said, look, 3,000 square meters, it put us at about 800 grand aside, 1.6 mil, which pretty fair. 1.6 mil. Now, some assumptions that I've made here in terms of the deposit, and it really depends how much deposit these guys have put down for this site initially, which will determine how much loan they've got, how much holding cost they've had, and then how much interest they've paid. So I'll run you through a couple of numbers. If they would have put down a 20% deposit, all right, 20% deposit on the land, and then they went through and they got development finance for the build, construction time frame about 1.5 years. I had my interest rate out a little bit because it's obviously on a drawdown, but I leave a bit of a margin in there to give myself a bit of a buffer, which I will use in this as well. But if they've put down, say, a 20% deposit, that holding cost for 8 months on, say, 1.1 mil of debt is about 50 grand. We then have interest costs of about interest, line fees, interest and a stab fees about 320, 350, and a few other fees here and there. So look, if they put down, here's the thing: if they only put down a 20% deposit and they build it for 1.6 mil, this project is returning about $465,000, which is about 12%. So that's not bad, and it's okay. It's okay. It's not game changing. There's a bit of money that's required. Total money required about 500 grand. So you're almost getting that, as I've said before, you're almost getting that 100% return on investment. Now, where it gets interesting is if they were a builder and they said, look, we can build this at, say, 1.5. If they were a builder and they said that, we can build that for about 1.4. So we take, now if we take a bit of a builder's, so if we take a little bit of a builder's margin like off that, because obviously if I'm a developer and I pay a builder's got to build it for his build price, then he puts his margin on top, and then I got to pay that price. But if this is a builder developer, so someone that is both the developer and the builder, they don't have to put that margin on there. So they can build it at cost price. So if they would have come in at a cost price of, say, 1.4 mil for something like this, and they still had a 20% deposit, then it's returning 19%, 710 grand. I'm rounding up these figures as well, so I don't have to, state dollars and cents. So then it's like, okay. And again, another thing here is that if these guys would have come through and put down a 40% deposit, so if you would have come through, paid a bigger chunk of money so that your interest component is lower, which you would have had to do if you were in development finance, then this is where it gets really interesting. 21% return on your money. You would have needed to put in about $770,000, 770 grand, but you would have made literally 770 grand in return. So that's the interesting thing about this project and development. That's returning 21% margin. So I don't know the story around this project, around if it was a builder developer or a developer that contracted and got a builder. I don't know the build price. I've made some assumptions around this. There is a little bit of money in it. It just depends on what that build price is. If it was a developer that is only putting down to 20%, let's go 30% deposit. Pretty typical. If I was the developer, put down a 30% deposit, and I was building it at, say, 1.6, 1.65 for the duplex, it's making 500 grand. If the duplex build goes up to 1. Let me tweak. Let me cook. If the build goes up to 1.7 mil, then the project's only return of 400 grand, which is a 10% return, that's when it starts to be like, oh, that's not great. That's at a 1.7 mil build. That's at 850 grand a side, which is getting up there in terms of price. So do I think there's money in this deal? Yeah, probably as a builder developer, which I know out in these areas there are a lot, because those guys would have come in super cheap. And if they're building at, say, 1.4 mil, 300 grand, well, that 300 grand that they're saving in that build price is going on to the profit where they're making 700 grand. So, yeah, I think these projects have money in them. This is a particular circumstance where even up a 30% deposit at maybe, at a $1.6 million build, there's about 13%. So it's not bad money. It's not terrible money. And then if you look at the project timeline, they bought the site. They bought the site in 2020. So basically, this particular project, 2 years start to finish, from buying the site to actually selling it. Not bad at all. 4 to sort of 450 to there's sort of $400,000 to $700,000 in it, just depending on, if you're a builder developer, if you're a builder, if you're just a developer. But hopefully that's giving you guys a little bit of an insight, a little bit of a rundown into Duplex site. I mean, let me know in the comments, first time doing it, are they making money? Yeah, I think so. In this deal, there's probably some money in it. Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comments, and we can maybe do a couple more of these.